Welcome to Social Media Fridays. Each week we meet to wind down and talk about what happened in the world of social media this week. With us today we have Daniel Nagraha, world's greatest programmer, Masataki Wasa. Masataki is webmaster of wasaweb.net. And he is also a Google top contributor on let me see, the AdSense and also the Google Plus help community. Meher Bhagat. Meher is a social media dynamo, if you like. She describes herself as a hardcore entrepreneur, and she hails from New Delhi in India. Is that right, Meher?
Yeah, that's right. Hello, everyone.
Hey. All right. Let's have a look at our first question tonight. The first topic, I should say. Each week we load topics into the Social Media Fridays community on Google Plus, and each Friday we discuss them. This was not really social media, but I thought it was interesting and something we could talk about. And it was the top 10 most popular searches on Google in 2014. One of them was Robin Williams, and I imagine that's an obvious one. Tell me, guys, did you have a look at this article? Do you know? Did you see the 10 items that they're discussing?
Yeah, and I found it interesting that World Cup has made it to US trending searches.
You don't think that the US is interested in that flavour of football?
Well, soccer to Americans, I suppose. It has always been the case that football/soccer isn't the most popular sport in the US, but this time around I think it really did catch people's imagination in the US in a way that previous tournaments hadn't. And that seems to be reflected in the trending searches as well. So I thought that was quite interesting, because there was a feeling that in this tournament there's a lot more interest in the US compared to previous competitions. World Cup is the biggest thing for most people, I'd say, in Europe, and in South America. So it's interesting that it's there on the US trending searches too.
Yep. What about you, Meher?
I agree. I mean, not only US, we saw that World Cup, trending our charts as well. I mean, like, I used to log in to my Twitters and Google, and everywhere it was always World Cup. I think, it did make a chart for a generic sense. I really like the Malaysia Airlines one apart. I mean, it made the headline everywhere. I mean, the plane going missing, then the second plane go missing.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, isn't it? Because you'd say that World Cup and Frozen are probably sort of positive things that people liked and discussed. Whereas I think others, I don't know what Fluffy Bird is.
I have no idea.
Help me. I don't know what Flappy Bird is. But others,
It's the most popular game on the internet, Masataki. Don't tell me you missed it.
we'll have to claim
I,
ignorance.
I think falling into a category where we actually don't play games.
No, but others are to do with tragedy or strife or accidents. So in that sense, it is quite interesting in that respect. Well, Conchita Wurst would be an exception on the global trending searches, because I think that would have been an interesting, positive thing, rather than the likes of ISIS or Ebola, which are bad things. So, on the counting Flappy Bird as a positive thing, out of 10, you'd say the World Cup, Flappy Bird, and Frozen are, if you like, interesting things that are, a positive, essentially. And in the global trending searches, World Cup, Flappy Bird, Conchita Wurst, and Frozen, and Sochi Olympics. That might be Sochi Olympics might be something of a controversial topic, but it's interesting to see that kind of divide, and to people are perhaps likelier to talk about inverted commas bad things. I mean, things that are to do with tragedy or horrible news or very controversial issues.
Yep. Okay. Will we proceed to the next? I'm going to record that as a yes. And this one was a post from Masataki Wasa. And Facebook is thinking about a dislike function. Now, I often see lots of things I'd rather press dislike on. But then again, they're going to record that against you. I mean, is it going to become a form of abuse? Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, Facebook is considering, I think, introduction of a dislike function. So I think they're floating the idea. I don't think it's necessarily a set course, as far as I can see from the reports. As I've said in the, as I've written in the community, I don't think it's a bad idea so long as it's not a public thing, as it were, because if a dislike button were to be introduced, and then that is essentially that takes away, pressing that dislike button takes like away, for example, then I think that's going to be tricky. We might have cases of, for example, cyberbullying, things like that. People are targeted. So many people come on and dislike posts, and then you have -20 next to your like button, for example. Then I think that becomes a bit tricky. So I think it would make sense to have a dislike button, but that doesn't really count towards the public counter that is visible to other people, or even to the person who posts that thing. But it should influence what you see on the wall. So if you constantly dislike certain kind of news or kind of items or kind of posts, then Facebook will learn that it's not something that you like. You still like to be friends with that person, but then you don't like particular types of posting. So it would help Facebook in making sure that your wall is much more suited to your preferences. I can see that happening. I think with a public dislike button that subtracts likes, as it were, or even puts the like figure into negative territory, I think then that is something that can foster a negative and hostile environment. But that's my opinion.
I see it. It's been around for many, many years. You often see it on newspaper forums where items get demoted, with too many minuses. Thinking about it, it could so easily be abused, couldn't it? Pretty soon you'd have people advertising on Twitter to remove 10,000 likes for only $5.
Yeah, and I think if you go to newspaper sites, comments can be downvoted in many cases. But that's because it's a public forum where people choose to express their opinions, which I think is somewhat different where you're posting as a person. I think Facebook is seen as more, how should I put it, more personal in personal space in nature. It's closer to you, the person, if that makes sense, compared to, let's say, you going to a newspaper site and then getting into a huge argument with someone else. That takes place on the newspaper site, as it were, in a public forum. Whereas I think Facebook is somewhat closer to your own person, to your private sphere, and having that kind of negative sort of figures and dislike buttons, I think that would be very tricky for Facebook. And as you say, it's going to be easy to purchase fake dislikes. You can, as much as you can buy fake likes, you will be able to buy fake dislikes.
Yeah, that's true.
So you might be extremely
what
unpopular
a strange world we live
in certain places in the world.
I personally think, adding a dislike button to profiles and profiles post and pages would be complete waste for Facebook. But however, adding dislikes to a dislike button to groups post, not groups, but post in groups, would be a useful idea, I think. Instead of, but then again, Facebook having dislike buttons even anywhere doesn't make sense at all. I mean, it's not a public news portal or a forum where you would have to go and dislike and like it, and those posts with more likes or lesser likes will go down or come up. It doesn't make sense for Facebook to have dislike button for anything. I don't think they need it. Having a dislike button on a relevant area, it makes sense for forums. People like it, they want to read, they want other people to read, so dislike and likes button helps there. But having on Facebook, profile post or pages doesn't make sense. But for groups, it could be sensible, but not just for the post, not for the groups. Isn't it? I mean, like, for example, I share a post with my friends, not with the entire world. I'm sharing it with my friends for them to know, or I find something that I find very interesting on the web, and I share it across to certain people. There's nothing to dislike. You can just, like it. You don't have a button. You still have an option not to like it. Logically, if you don't press the button like, it says that it indirectly says that you're not interested, you do not like this thing. Why do you have a separate button that says dislike, a negative marking that says, I don't like it? Don't like it. Simple as that. Why do you have a stupid next button next to it? It's not a forum. It's a generic thing that I would like to share with my friends, or it's a page post for news information, for updates. For groups, it could make much sense. People would like to read relevant, good content over certain groups that they join. That's what I think. Facebook would do a blunder mistake if they get dislike button.
That's interesting. That you think not liking something is showing, in a sense, a weak form of a dislike on personal posts. So, if someone posts an interesting thing, something that you like, but not really, oh, that's great, I really like it, but you think, oh yeah, okay, that's good, you'd like it, rather than just not press the like button and think, oh yeah, that's good, I'll see the next post. You will actually like that post and then move on.
Yeah, because even though if it's pages or personal posts shared publicly, it doesn't make sense to add dislike button. What dislike button would do is to get those posts on top, and that's not latest. That could be an old, that could be an year-old thing that I did or said or shared. That doesn't make sense for popping up top or completely negative. For forums and for public news, portals, and dislike button helps. It narrow down what people are liking, what people are disliking. It makes sense. But for Facebook to have on, your personal profile post or pages post or groups, it doesn't make much sense to have a negative impression. People don't like. If they don't like, they don't have to go and press a dislike button.
Okay, so how about we move on to the next one?
I think we all are anti-Facebook, aren't we?
All right.
I think we're done.
Yet another Facebook post. This one was done by me. Facebook is now letting users search through older posts. I imagine they mean their own posts. This is a bit of a turn-up. Facebook doesn't generally let anybody see new posts, let alone older posts. Okay. Did anybody get a chance to see this article?
Not really, but I do remember Facebook has an option. You can shut down your older post and let not anyone see it. They do have a button that says that on profiles. I'm not sure they have. They don't have it for pages.
All right, let's record this one as a news item and move on to the next. This is some of the recent changes in Google. Actually, since I made this post, there've actually been what I think are some positive changes. So some changes which demonstrate that somebody back there is actually trying to do something to move forward. Comments on updates to Google Plus, guys? No comments at all?
What were the updates?
Well, we had updates like the notification symbol and the display of your notifications in the right-hand panel where the chat normally sits.
That's been cool.
Well, part of it has, but the notification window still works differently to the way it used to.
Yeah.
There were I can't think of one now. Damn it.
No, I think sometimes, well, how could I put it? Sometimes the best changes are things that you don't notice, right?
Mm-hmm.
It seems so natural that it looks as though it has been there for a long time. Those are the best ones, I think. Those are the best changes that you just don't notice, but seem so natural, so yeah, so seamless. But yeah, I can't remember. There was an update on Mr. Jingles and notification part, and there was I think a bigger change, but part of that has been now taken back, as it were.
All right, let's move on to our next topic, published by Tony McCreath. Tony said, well, actually, Paul Gailey Albuquerque originally shared a post where he said, I rarely share cross posts, but I think this is totally hammer on the nail, as social media is rarely the most long-term effective activity compared to brand search and engagement as articulated by Augie Ray. P.S. I must commit to LinkedIn in 2015. I hardly touch it and confess I am chronically out of date there. Tut-tut. Well, what's your opinion on this one, Masataki?
I think I read it this a while back.
This post was actually from a week ago, but yeah, it was posted a week ago, but of course we didn't run Social Media Fridays last week, and so hence you see it there now. And let's all agree that it's all been said before, and we'll move on to the next. All right. Question 6. Facebook is working on software that could prevent users from posting unflattering photos of themselves. This could be useful to me. I've often thought I should have an Alco lock on my keyboard.
I think it's sensible for Facebook for doing that. Not just drunken. I've seen people I've seen my friends posting their photographs with guns. That doesn't make sense. Why are you posting photographs with guns?
Hmm.
It'd be interesting. There will inevitably be false positives and things like that. So it's going to be quite interesting, if it works. And would it be accurate enough? I mean, sometimes it's going to be difficult at times. And I, part of me is pretty old-fashioned, perhaps, and think, well, don't rely on Facebook's image recognition, artificial intelligence. Exercise your own judgment. Obviously, if you're completely drunk, you're deprived of that power of judgment, but somehow you still retain the ability to manipulate the phone and post something. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea, but I wouldn't want to rely on it. I don't want to be in a situation where I have to rely on it. Jim, you're
Unfortunately,
muted.
I had something. Yes, I realise that, Masataki, now. I was going to ask Masataki if you think that the alcohol that you drink is far stronger than the AI of Facebook. Is that what you're saying?
No, no, I mean, okay, so how is Facebook going to recognize someone's drunk? And, you know, so where's the line between being drunk and being silly and slightly tipsy and happy? Is it okay to post something when you're a bit tipsy and happy? Um, or where do you draw the line? It's going to be a tough one, and so there are going to be situations where pictures that you've taken when you're sober and completely in control of yourself, being rejected, and then you have to go through and say, yes, I really do want to publish this, and I'm sober. Or you might have a situation where you are completely drunk and you post something and Facebook doesn't pick it up, and it's there. And you don't want to
Well,
rely on that. You don't want that happening. So you don't want to rely on Facebook's function to the extent that you think, yeah, Facebook will take care of it. Yeah, I'm drunk. I'm drunk, but
I don't
Facebook will take care
understand.
of it.
I really don't understand how could Zuckerberg do something like this. He made Facebook half being drunk all the time. How could he do something like this to people?
Well, this is true. I'd have to be very drunk to use Facebook.
He created Facebook being half drunk most of the time. I saw the movie, which reflected, his image somehow, right? It showed that publicly showed he was half drunk all the time when he was working with Facebook. He started with Facebook. He got coders getting drunk all the time just to make sure that they do their work, even being drunk, even being in sleep. So yeah, I mean, what's wrong with them? They created something being drunk, and how can they stop people, doing something they can do much better being drunk.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. I'm not so sure the film is an accurate portrayal of Mr. Zuckerberg, but um, Facebook, when it initially started and when I joined, it was very much so the thing among university students. And what do students do? In many cases, to get drunk and be silly. That's part of being a student. So in that context, it's okay. But now Facebook has become far more serious in that your career prospects might be influenced, might be adversely affected by what you have posted. So what might be a totally appropriate in the sense that the people who are your friends and your whole environment is, for example, a university experience, then posting a posting pictures of you and your friends while drunk, that doesn't seem too bad. But 10 years down the line, you look at it and think, oh, right. And it's somewhere there, and you go for an interview, they're going to have a look at your Facebook and they see a picture where you were completely drunk. That might affect your chances, even though in many places you're not, and potential or would-be employers are not allowed to do that kind of thing because it's personal rather than out there public, even though it may be publicly accessible. And yeah, so in that sense, I think there is a need for this kind of function because it's become far more important, far more serious than perhaps Facebook had been when it initially started and the first few years. It's become very much a personal archive and in many cases publicly accessible personal archives. And youthful indiscretion ends up costing chances later in life, potentially. And that's, I think, for that reason, I think it is a necessary and desirable function.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. For public post, yes, it is. I mean, for personal, I don't think it's required. If you're sharing with a couple of people, it's fine. But if you're sharing something publicly, that could give, you know, a bump to something negative. And, I think that this function could really help. But then, again, how would Facebook realize or the software realize that the other person is drunk or not? I mean, just having a beer bottle or a wine glass or a champagne glass or anything in your hand, having clicked with it, doesn't say you're drunk. Yeah, you're somewhere promoting that it's liquor, right? Which is fine. But I could have an apple juice which looked like whiskey. Doesn't make sense. How will Facebook software realize that this is alcohol, this is not alcohol? I mean, if you're just posting pictures, if you're saying, oh, I'm this bar, that makes sense because you're drinking. But with a picture you cannot. There has to be something very concrete. I mean, I can hold a whiskey glass and an apple juice glass, both contained in a similar glass. Now, how would you define this is apple juice or this is whiskey? No one can actually do that. They look almost similar.
That's the interesting thing, because what they can do perhaps is look at all these other factors that Facebook probably can gather. So, for example, if it's a phone, it will have reasonable idea about where you are. So you might be in a bus, and that might increase the chances that Facebook thinks that you might be in a state of stupor. It might be time. So if let's say you are in a bar at 10 p.m., Facebook think, okay, we might have to look into the pictures more carefully now because this person.
It could be controversial. I could be having dinner with my friends, and I might not have Facebook location on services on my cell phone. I could be having, just a simple juice, and my friends could be having liquor they want, right? It doesn't justify, does it?
No, I think so. That's why it's going. There are going to be false positives, and more worryingly for people who have to rely on this function, that that you know Facebook lets compromising pictures through. So it's going to be very difficult, I think, for Facebook to get it right. But I think and that's why I think it's a really interesting experiment, because it will have to decide where to draw the line and how accurate it's going to be. And the amount of data it has, it might just be able to pull it off. And if it can, I think that'd be very interesting. But as I've said before, I don't think it's something that people should rely on. It'd be a dangerous thing to do.
Yeah. All right. Let's call that a wrap on this one, unless I have an objection. No, I'll click the button. And we've got to the end again. Dan, I thought you would fix that for me. All right. Let me see. That's better. All right. Well, thank you. If you're still watching or watching this at a later time, thank you for taking the time and trouble to see what we have to say. We we appreciate it very much. Without you, it wouldn't be worth us doing this at all. We'll be back at the same time next week to do it all again.